Well, back here in the U.S., the House of Representatives has passed a bill to raise the federal minimum wage. This happened just yesterday. It will raise it incrementally to $15 an hour. The federal minimum wage has been at $7.25 an hour since 2009, though 29 states plus D.C. have a higher threshold. That minimum was established in the 1930s. It's never gone this long without an increase. Mattie Duppler is National Taxpayers Union Senior Fellow. She joins us now from Washington. And so, Mattie, the CBO has found that this would cause a significant increase in wages for many Americans, but would also cause some job losses. And it also doesn't look like it's going to make it through the Senate.
Correct.
Is there a minimum wage increase that would be able to make it through? Is it a matter of the magnitude? Is it a matter of how gradual it is? Because they did make it more gradual in this particular bill.
Sure, but there's a lot of places that have tried that gradual increase. Washington, D.C. is one of them, and they actually saw that gradual increase get erased and repealed in the city council because of the workers who it purports to protect were so against the increase in the minimum wage. Now, the elastic effects of increasing the minimum wage are the real problem here. It doesn't, I see it not as so much of a problem about the top line number. It's more about what happens when you put that federal minimum wage increase into effect. The CBO also told us that it'll cost 1.3 million jobs because, of course, that makes labor more expensive. This bill also eliminates protections for some of the other classes of workers who benefit from not having a higher minimum wage. Those are tipped workers, those are teenage workers, and workers with disability. And moreover, the people that this really would impact are the jobless, right? I mean, when you're looking at increasing a minimum wage in a robust economy, there's a lot of proponents of it. But what you have to consider is when the economy slows down and workers are all of a sudden at a premium, it makes it much more expensive for employers to hold on to those employees. And so while the CBO said that jobless workers would actually see a net decrease in their income of $20 billion, that could be more if we do enter a recession in the coming few years.
True. I mean, we do have some case studies, right? Because Seattle, for example, also raised its minimum wage several years ago. There have been some studies about it. Some have found increased costs. There's another, though, that looked at supermarket prices and did not see increased costs there. I mean, and surely there is some benefit to raising wages. So, I mean, how do you balance all of this, and what do you do about it?
Sure. I mean, I'm not against raising wages, right? I think workers should be able to demand as much value as they possibly can for their labor. Now, the question is, how do you do that, right? One, in this economic environment, we're actually seeing those effects happen without mandates and public policy coming into play. The bottom 10% of workers are seeing their wages rise faster than they've seen since 2000 as a result of the strong economy and a hot labor market. So that's one way, making sure that you have policies in place that allow workers to demand as much value as possible for their laborers. You mentioned Seattle. I am much more sympathetic to much more discrete and community-driven efforts rather than a federal mandate. One of the issues that you see with a federal mandate is that it doesn't take into account demographic changes, geographic changes, and of course, the United States, we've got labor markets that look very different on different parts of the country. So really, I think that when it comes to the federal discussion, it makes probably some nice talking points for a lot of political campaigns, but the reality of it doesn't do much to solve what is generally a geographic problem for workers if they're in an economy, in a community where they're not getting paid as much as their labor can demand.
Hey, Mattie, Dan Howley here. I just wanted to know, is there any way Congress gets this through at any point? Because it seems like this is just going to be another protracted battle where it gets shot down by the Senate. The House can bring it up again, but it'll get shot down again. Is there any point in the future where you see potentially Congress moving to push the minimum wage higher?
I mean, this isn't just a problem between the House and the Senate or between Democrats and Republicans. Democrats really needed a vote that unified them this week on the floor after a week of kind of tweeting different, I think, allegations at one another throughout the conference. But there were a lot of disagreements between different members of that caucus about what the minimum wage hike should look like. So this getting sent over to the Senate is really the least of the problem. The fact that it was even able to get through the House itself, I think, was surprising. Now, the Senate, of course, doesn't have much of an appetite to take up something like this. They're busy passing judicial nominations and confirming administration appointees. And if you've been following what's happening in D.C., we have quite a few acting cabinet nominees that need to get put into place as well. So the Senate's slate is pretty full. The minimum wage, of course, will continue to be a topic of conversation for presidential candidates. It will be interesting to see if this comes up in the debates at the end of this month, because certainly Bernie Sanders and other candidates have made this part of their platform for president. president. And so I'll be interested to see if the folks running for president try to put more pressure on the Senate to act.
Yes, we'll check back in with you if they do. Mattie Duppler, National Taxpayers Union Senior Fellow,
Thanks, guys.
thank you.